Boom. It's Steven and Tucker. We just finished up week 6. How are we doing today, Tucker? How'd your fantasy teams do this week?
My fantasy team's not great. I'm doing well. I'm still excited to talk football nonetheless. Overall, I think kind of a weird week for fantasy owners. I think a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
underperformed, and
Yep.
just a few select really overperformed. Um, but let's get into the quick big notes before we get down into the games. I
Sure.
think the
Yep.
main one is Le'Veon Bell signing with the Chiefs.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about that. Yeah.
How does that make you feel about Clyde?
Makes me feel terrible about Clyde. I mean, it's a debate about like, oh, okay, oh, are they just bringing in Le'Veon? Maybe he'll just like spell Clyde. No, I think it's gonna be Le'Veon and valuable opportunities like goal line, as well as a lot of receiving opportunities. I think this just basically really hurts both of their values equally. I think they'll both be good like RB2 upside plays. Like I think they're still definitely both rosterable. I think Le'Veon actually gets a little bit of an increase in his value, but I think this makes them both RB2s that you're hoping get in the end zone, with Le'Veon likely getting those red zone goal line touches. What about you?
Right, about that, yeah. Pretty much the same thing. I think Le'Veon gets goal line touches. Heck, he might even snag early down work. So Clyde, yeah, I think Clyde's in danger. I think Le'Veon could line up in the slot as well. I mean,
Yeah,
you know, just a whole bunch of different stuff. But either way, it takes away value from both for sure. He does not get to play this week though, so it's Clyde's last opportunity to really make a statement and be that
yeah,
guy.
yeah. Tuck, on a scale of 1 to 10, how washed do you think Le'Veon Bell is? 10 being he's dust.
He's what, 20, 28, 29? I mean, 6. I think he's still sorry, 4 if 10 is
Mhm.
dust. 4 if 10 is dust.
Yeah.
I think he's still got some juice left. I mean, a couple of years at least, and that's what he's running for anyway. That's his contract here. So
Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking probably like a 3. Like anyone in the Adam Gase offense always underperforms, and the second they break out,
exactly,
it's like
exactly.
fireworks. So, we saw how he was in Pittsburgh. He's a beast. The Jets offense is just stagnant. Not that they're not using him in any creative ways. I doubt he has exactly the motivation to perform on such a bad team. I think Le'Veon's going to pleasantly surprise the people who are saying he's just done.
I mean, you saw LaShawn McCoy produce on this offense last year, so
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if several year younger Le'Veon Bell can be a beast here. I mean,
yeah. Last question we'll ask on this. I want to pose this question to you. Rest of the
mhm.
season, who would you prefer, Le'Veon or Clyde?
I still think Clyde at the moment, just because it's really difficult to tell what kind of workload they want to give Le'Veon.
Hmm.
As of right now, I see Clyde getting still the majority of the carries and probably the majority of the passing down work. Um, but I mean, Le'Veon could always take over. On the bright side, Clyde does for a football perspective, like actual football. Um, Clyde does get to learn under Le'Veon Bell, which is a huge plus for him. He'll
Hmm.
he'll learn his patient style of running, which I think could be really good for the Chiefs. So
Cool. All right. Well, What other news do we have to cover before we jump into these games?
I think those are the really big things. Couple injuries, Miles Sanders. I think Zach Ertz supposed to get MRIs. So that's yet to be seen. What you got on Dallas Goddard as the Dallas Goddard expert, Steven?
Yeah, Goddard. I don't know that he's gonna be back this week. It's a short week, but he's eligible to return this week. This will be him returning from his 3-week IR. But just a quick message to anyone out there where Goddard's on your waiver wires. Go grab him now. I mean, you missed your chance this weekend because now he's on waivers, but get him on Wednesday because Ertz is injured. I think, has a really good chance to get traded. A lot of people around the league are saying there's a huge chance because Ertz wants a contract. The Eagles have shown they're not really that interested in giving him what he wants, and they're pretty much a team going nowhere right now with a young tight end that they really like in Dallas Goddard. I don't think they re-sign him. I think they cut him loose, get what they can for him now in a trade before the deadline. So boom, grab Goddard because without without Ertz, whether it's due to injury or trade, Goddard is going to be a top 5 tight end option the rest of the way. go grab Dallas Goedert. Dude's a beast.
Right. And then, and lastly for our little notes, Johnny Smith left with an ankle injury. So that's something to monitor, of course. But we'll get into actual performances now.
Okay, let's do it. Let's jump into this first game we want to discuss, which is Packers-Buccaneers. Tuck, what was your biggest takeaway on the Buccaneers side of the ball?
Yeah, this was just a bad game for the Packers, but the Buccaneers, they looked pretty good on all sides. I think my biggest takeaway might be that Gronk had 8 targets. That seemed like a big deal. I mean, OJ Howard is out for season, so somebody's got to take the tight end targets. Is it Gronk? Is he the new guy there as of right now? I mean, he had, I think, the most targets on the team. Mike Evans, 1 catch for 10 yards. What do you think about Gronk, Steven?
I think it's notable given that Godwin was back this game. So they had Evans, they had Godwin. It's still hard for me to buy in, to be honest. Like I just don't see it, and that offense historically doesn't utilize tight ends that much. So this makes me think this is a one-off game. But I'm personally not going and rushing off waiver wires to pick up Gronk. But I could definitely be wrong about this. What about you?
I mean, he still looks like a bit slower, obviously. So, but maybe he had to take some time to just get back into football shape. Like maybe this is him. Maybe this is his breakout game. Maybe he is back. Obviously, I'd say give it another game before you go out and spend crazy fab on him or something like that. But since tight end is pretty slim, it's not a bad idea to start taking a look now. You know, take a look a week early. Add him to just a bench spot that you might not need. Maybe.
Yeah,
really depends on where you're at. But
despite my skepticism when we talk on waiver wire show tomorrow, Gronk's probably going to be one of the top 2 tight end pickups. So, I just have a personal, I just don't see it there. But, definitely worth a look for sure.
Comebacks are hard. That's fair. And then Ronald Jones, 23 carries, 113 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. That's I've been down on Ronald Jones. I just think I'm wrong, I guess. He looks good, I don't know what to say there.
You know what this means, Tucker? Bad or good, Ronald Jones. 3, 2, 1.
Good.
What? Oh man.
I mean, it's hard to argue with it. He's getting 23 carries a game. That's your argument for Joe Mixon.
No, but Fournette is hurt. And Fournette should be back next week, if not the week after that. And I literally, when both of them are healthy, Bruce Arians has shown it's one back or the other, or a mix. You're never going to know which one has value on a given week, and I lean Fournette regardless. So I'm out on Ronald Jones. For
a bit, I thought that might be the case, where I was like, oh, yeah, okay, so Fournette might be the guy on some weeks. But they've been on about how Ronald Jones is their guy that they want to use. And he's proved his worth while Fournette's been gone. So maybe they just put Fournette's the back burner and Ronald Jones is their guy.
Maybe they do. This will be an interesting one to watch because this is one that we're going to completely disagree on. I think Fournette is the far more talented back. I'm still in on Fournette being the better running back in this backfield. I'm out on Ronald Jones. If we're talking good or bad, I think he could be useful.
Yeah. Me buying on Ronald Jones might just be the result of being so crushed on running back. So. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go to the Packers side of the ball.
Yeah, it is thin this year, so he's gonna be used. Okay. Sorry. I thought StreamYard cut out. Packers side of the ball, for me, the notable thing here that I was watching was Robert Tonyan. He left the game early with an injury, but still had 4 targets, 3 catches for 25 yards. I think Tonyan is the real deal because if he finishes this game, I think he finishes with, 5 or 6 targets, maybe 4 or 5 catches for 40 yards-ish, and that's already going to get you top 12 tight end numbers. So I think that was the most interesting takeaway. I think this was just an off day for the offense. So I wouldn't read into anything outside of that. I think they'll get right next week. But yeah, Tonyan was who I was watching this week, and I was pleasantly surprised with his usage. What did you see on the Packers side?
Interesting. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers did have a good game. So I think in terms of the passing, it was a little lackluster, obviously. I think some of his throws were a little off, but he was clearly frustrated throughout the game. Devontae Adams still had a nice little comeback game, 6 catches, 61 yards. Hit 10 targets, which is obviously great. I think give him another week to work back into the offense, and he'll be back at that wide receiver 1 spot, which is great. You can pretty much put this one aside for Rodgers and expect better next week. Same goes for Aaron Jones, who had 10 carries for 15 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, that's a tough defense, so it's okay.
Yeah, you can pretty much put that one aside. I think they'll be a lot better next week.
Agreed. Okay, let's go ahead and jump to our next game. Texans, Titans. Deshaun Watson absolutely balls out here. 335 yards, 4 touchdowns, quarterback rating of about 139. What did you see here in the Texans receiving core that stands out to you?
Brandon Cooks, for sure. 9 targets. I mean, it confirms the usage. They were trying to get him involved, and they've continued to get him involved. And if that's how they're going to proceed, Brandon Cooks is definitely startable. Honestly, 9 targets. That's great.
Yep.
Will Fuller also, doing Will Fuller things. He's had a lot of touchdowns in the past few games. Texans receivers look good right now. They look good.
I think maybe the coaching change had something to do with this offense looking good today. This is a upset win here, losing. Sorry, they lost to the Titans, but the offense played surprisingly well here. I forgot.
It was a shootout, man. It was a shootout.
Yeah,
it really was.
I think if the Texans get the ball in overtime to start, like you saw Deshaun, they're not getting the ball first. He knew the game was over at the coin flip. I think if the Texans get the ball first, they win. Like, it just shows how bad NFL overtime rules are, to where the coin flip pretty much decides it. But I thought that Texans looked really good. The offense did, at least. And yeah, Brandon Cooks, man, I was playing again this week, tilting. Like, I could have had him any other week of the season except last week or this week, and I would have been okay. But yeah, I think that's worth highlighting. As well as Darren Fells, 6 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown. Zam.
That's something to keep an eye on. I mean, similar to Gronk, I guess. I think Darren Fells is probably more of a 1 week kind of thing. Usually he doesn't get more than 1 good week in a row, so I wouldn't dive straight into Darren Fells right now. But yeah, I think Houston would have won this game if not for El Tractorcito, Derrick Henry, in overtime. Because that man had a game. 212 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. I mean, just insane. He's insane. I have nothing to say. It's just,
this was one of those classic Derrick Henry games where you're just like, yep, that sounds about right. 212 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 catches for 52 yards through the air on 5 targets. Like, I can't remember the last time I saw Henry getting 5 targets in the passing game. That's notable to me. And as we enter the winter, when they start to run Henry a little more and he starts having a little more success, man, I hope he's on your roster.
Yeah, he's probably entering that little stretch where he gets like 40 points a game for 3 weeks straight. So just get ready for it, because it's probably going to happen again next week.
100%.
When he gets in the zone, he's in the zone, and you just can't stop him. Meanwhile, Ryan Tannehill tossing 4 touchdowns. Anthony Firkser had a good game.
Jonnu Smith with the injury, I think, pretty much led to that. I think that's what we can chalk that up to. What do you think about that?
Yeah, if Jonnu's out for an extended period amount of time, how do you feel about adding Firkser?
Yeah, I would do it. If Jonnu's out for an extended period of time, would 100% do it. I mean, he put up the numbers. I don't know the specifics on Jonnu's injury, but that's definitely one to monitor for our waiver wire show tomorrow.
Definitely.
All right, Tuck. Let's move on. Next, we have Bengals Ravens. We finally saw. Bengals Colts, where the Bengals had a lead for a good amount of this, right? And then the Colts end up winning 31-27. Joe Mixon, the bell cow running back, the top 10 RB, had 18 carries for 54 yards and a touchdown, as well as 2 catches for 15 yards. Can we just talk about Joe Mixon? Like, do you not see what I'm saying here? Like, top 10, he gets 18 carries and 3 targets in the passing game, and that includes leaving the game for a period of time due to injury. Are you
Yeah.
seeing the usage now, or are you still out on him? Because this is top 10 RB usage.
I think I'm just still not interested, especially at the level that you hold him, and a lot of people hold him. They think he's just a top tier running back in RB1, and I just still don't see it. I mean, he's got the usage, but still, I mean, middle tier in terms of points scored. He had 1 touchdown, and he had 2 touchdowns vultured, one by Joe Burrow, one by Gio Bernard, which you would want to, like, it shouldn't be happening, and it stinks that it is happening because he could have had another 3 touchdown day, and stuff like that is really just kind of pulling me away from Joe Mixon. It makes me not want him because that's what they're going to do over and over and over, and that's why he's always been that middle tier for me, because they always do.
Counterpoint though, this was against the Colts defense. That defense doesn't give up anything to the running back, and he still had a solid fantasy game. Like, this was a tough matchup. Now, I think in the easy matchups is where you're going to see those multi-touchdown games, but in a tough matchup, him still getting 13 plus fantasy points, I think is why he's an RB1. He gets that volume, so no matter the matchup, he's playable, and I think you're really going to see his value in those just crush it Bengals. The rare matchup where the Bengals are highly favored against poor run defenses. That's where you're going to really enjoy it. But he can still get it done against the tough run defenses.
Yeah, think what you will, but at the end of the day, it's still 3 yards a carry, and that's just not interesting to me.
Colts. We'll have to table this one for throughout the season. I think we'll be revisiting this debate every week. But yeah, anything you want to talk about other than that on the Bengals side of the ball?
Nothing really. Kind of what you expect. I mean, most targets went to their big guys. AJ Green got 11 targets, which is good.
Oh, surprising, yeah.
He's a little tricky in terms of a fantasy play. I don't think that I'm necessarily going to buy in. 39 pass attempts from Burrow. He had a pretty good game overall. But no, I mean, those 3 guys you can probably safely start as a flex option. I don't know that I'd buy in on top of that. Boyd, Green, and Higgins.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're seeing Higgins really develop into their go-to guy, so that's cool to see.
Yeah, he's looking really good.
Yeah. On the Colts side, I think the most notable to me is Trey Burton seems to be their guy. We touched on this.
We did.
Touched on this.
Yes, we did.
I mentioned him, didn't I?
You
on
did.
The last episode. And he comes in, he gets 5 targets, 4 catches, 58 yards, and a touchdown. He's going to be a hot commodity on the waiver wire this week. I know that. We mentioned him last week as a guy to keep your eye on. And, maybe we should have gone a little harder in talking about picking him up because at this point it's probably too late. But, yeah, I mean, that's what stands out to me. Jonathan Taylor was involved in the passing game, too. That's good to see. What did you see on the Colts side of the ball that you feel like talking about?
Not a whole lot. I think Trey Burton is interesting for sure. Jack Doyle also got a touchdown. So it's interesting to see them using several guys. Mo Alley Cox did get hurt in the game, which I think adds a lot for Trey Burton.
That's a good point. Really good point.
So I think if Mo Alley Cox, I mean, keep an eye on that injury, and if he's out for an extended period of time, yeah, I mean, Trey Burton could be the new guy there, and we know how Phillip Rivers feels about good tight ends, I mean,
can you believe they gave Trey Burton a goal line carry? He had a touchdown, 1 yard touchdown run. Like they love this guy.
They want to get him involved. I mean, he had a decent stint with the Eagles for a little while, so maybe someone else is finally going to use him because the Bears surely didn't. Who knows? Keep an ip. Maybe pick him up if you're feeling risky. There were a couple breakout games for tight ends this week, so pick and choose, try and get the right guy. We'll talk about it a little bit more on our waiver show tomorrow for sure.
Perfect. Okay, ready to jump to the next game?
Let's do it.
All right, so we have Falcons, Vikings. Falcons get their first win of the season. That's pretty hype. Love to see that. Julio, man, comes back. He was randomly not listed even as questionable coming into the game. 8 catches, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns. Calvin Ridley also gets his 6 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown. Worth noting that he missed some time to injury or cramps, I believe. And then even Hayden Hurst getting 4 catches, 57 yards, and 1 trip to the end zone. I think we just saw the Falcons offense firing on all cylinders here, which is good to see because after the coaching change, this should be an indication of what to expect moving forward. They closed out a game. I was, when they had a lead early, I was like, is this going to be more of the same where the Vikings come back and win it? Not the case. Pretty good game from the Falcons offense, including Matt Ryan. What did you think about the Falcons here? Talk.
Yeah, so one of the reasons they were actually able to close out the game is because their defense actually played football. I mean, they had 3 picks really early against Kirk Cousins, which made a huge difference. I don't see them doing that every week, I'll be honest. But nonetheless, I do think they'll be scoring points like this every week. So that's a little irrelevant in terms of their offense. It was great to see Julio back. Love seeing that, and he really came back. 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's super exciting. Plug him right back into your lineups, obviously, every week. Todd Gurley kind of back to what we've expected. He did get 20 carries, which is, I mean, that's encouraging, but only 47 yards, which is not. and 4 targets, which is also good, but he's gonna be interesting to talk about it a little bit more, just because he seems to be almost, Kenyon Drake-ish for me, and especially like you seem to be pretty out on Kenyon Drake. It's a lot of carries, not a lot of yards, and limited passing work. So I don't know.
Rest of season, Todd Gurley or Joe Mixon?
I think I get Joe Mixon there. That one I can get with.
I was gonna be very upset if you took the Todd Gurley side of that. That's good to hear.
But similar in terms of production. Honestly, they're not that different. Lots of carries, can't produce on it. I mean, Joe Mixon's looking at a little more looks in the reception game right now. Hopefully, it stays that way. But
I just have to see this just to prove a point. On this similar production, I have to see, because that is not the case. On the season, we have Joe Mixon versus Todd Gurley. Where do you think each of them stands? I'm curious what you suspect is the case.
In terms of what?
In terms of points, fantasy points per game.
Fantasy. Okay, I know Joe Mixon's. He had a 40-point game or something in there, so of course he's higher.
Then why are you holding the 40-point game against them?
But I'd love to take that game out and see where they stand, because I feel like they're a lot closer.
Why would we take it out? He played that game.
I understand, but you're not gonna bank on that every week. So it's like taking out an anomaly. It's like taking out something outside the standard deviation, which it is. I assume.
Honestly, to be honest, I wish I hadn't looked this up, because they're only 3 spots apart, and that's with Joe Mixon's 42-point game. Well, I think the argument can and should be made that Joe Mixon should 100% be the choice over Todd Gurley the rest of the season. But I'm glad to see that you agree, so we don't have to argue.
I do agree. I just don't think that they're that far off.
Okay, that's fine.
Right.
I mean, that's your opinion. I disagree, but I'll allow you to have it. Let's move on to the Vikings. We both put together a DFS lineup this week that we'll review tomorrow during the waiver show, or during our DFS show for the coming week. And I'm pretty confident I'm going to dominate you, because I started Justin Jefferson, 9 catches, 166 yards, and 2 touchdowns. How you like that, Tucker?
I started Justin Jefferson too, so
I knew you had 2 lineups. I didn't know if you started him in the one against me. But did you start Henry too?
I didn't start Henry, so that's where you're gonna.
That's what it was.
That's where you're gonna.
I'd rather have that discrepancy.
Justin Jefferson had a great game. 11 targets, 9 receptions. I mean, dominated the targets more than Irv Smith and Adam Thielen combined. It's he's looking really good. I think he's a definite start every week at this point. And Adam Thielen only 3 catches. He had a touchdown to kind of save his day near the end of the game. But I think things would have been a lot different if Kirk Cousins had moved the ball better in the beginning. I mean, he had 3 picks almost back to back to back. It was not good. And I think that really put him behind from the get-go, which destroyed Alexander Madison's value for that game. Just so unfortunate, because we were really, really in on Alexander Madison. I think a lot of people in the business were really, really in on Alexander Madison. Just because they expected it to be closer. The Falcons defense hasn't held up until this game specifically. And it made Alexander Madison just look pretty bad. 10 carries, 26 yards. He got nothing going on the ground. He never really had a chance. So
Yeah, I think to me, obviously the game script really killed Madison on the ground. But the reason that we were loving him was he was supposed to plug in as this Dalvin Cook bell cow type that was going to get all the action through the air too. So I thought Madison in a shootout was going to be good for, three, maybe four catches. That's all I was asking. He gets one catch for 4 yards. And meanwhile, Mike Boone and Amir Abdullah are coming in for passing downs. So at this point, I'm asking myself, like, why am I even rostering Alexander Madison? Because he's only a handcuff, and Dalvin Cook is expected to be back this after the bye week. So I'm probably not going to get the chance to play Madison anytime soon, barring a Cook injury. But even if I do, it has to be a plus matchup where Madison's probably just going to see the groundwork and a little bit through the air. It's clear that he wasn't the true bell cow because you saw Boone and Amir Abdullah getting more work than I personally expected. So at this point,
yeah.
I just see Madison as a wasted roster spot that I can't hold through the bye weeks. So I'm dropping him half due to logic, half due to just rage from screwing me over in my matchups and DFS lineups this week. So yeah, frustrated about Madison. I'm sure a lot of people are because we're expecting top 5 numbers, and he wasn't used the way we are expecting him to be used, and the game script didn't go nearly as maybe expected.
Yeah, I definitely think he's a guy you can drop for at least this bye week, maybe pick him back up afterwards just for safety. I understand I understand just being bitter and not wanting to, but he's still one of the most valuable handcuffs in my opinion. I do think game script had a ton to do with his production. But no, I get not wanting him on your team for right now. I mean, Dalvin Cook's proved, knock on wood, pretty healthy up to this point. So hopefully he can, keep up that good health, especially in a season where running backs are dropping like flies. I just I would roster him again after the bye week, especially since probably no one's going to pick him up, the week after you drop him. I think he'll be free to add and just kind of put back on your roster. Unless you're really, really needy for other spots, I think he's still a valuable handcuff to hold on to.
Yeah, I'm going to be biased from this game, but I really think like he's only going to be startable in a plus matchup if that's how they're going to use him in the passing game. Because, I'm upset. I'm upset. The Vikings betrayed me today. Alexander Madison betrayed me, and I'm dropping him. I have to leave him to the waiver wire. He's banished.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all you.
I was going to say briefly back to Irv Smith. 4 catches, 55 yards on 5 targets. Just curious, Irv Smith, good or bad? 3, 2, 1.
Bad. I really like Irv Smith. I want to explain though, since we talk about good or bad in terms of a guy you can basically rely on helping you more than he hurts you, a guy who you view as someone you want to start on a weekly basis, I don't see that happening with Irv Smith. I do see him as a guy you want to start in pass-heavy situations, games with high over-unders like this one we saw today. I think he's going to be used heavily when they have to pass the ball a ton, but we've seen the Vikings are one of the most run-heavy teams in the league under Coach Kubiak, and Irv Smith is at best a third option behind Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. So I just don't see him getting a heavy target share in an offense that just doesn't throw the ball a ton. So I think you can definitely plug and play him off in plus matchups, but right now he's headed into a bye week. I'm not rushing out to claim him off the waiver wire, but going into week 8, maybe a guy to keep an eye on moving forward. I think given how thin tight end is, he's definitely worth keeping an eye on. And he was a great DFS play this week. He was like $4,300. He was so cheap. I don't understand why. I played him against you, by the way. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
I think again, tight end is pretty slim. If he's getting 4 catches, 55 yards, that's definitely playable at the tight end spot and probably better than most guys. So I mean, he seems to be getting more targets and more playing time over Kyle Rudolph every single week. So I definitely think I see him as good for the rest of the season. Eventually, he'll start working in some touchdowns, I'm sure, and look a little bit better. So
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Like, I think this could be one of those situations where the coaching staff is just recognizing that talent and giving him more snaps, making him run more routes. Like, if that's the case, he is going to be good the rest of the season. But in my opinion, I just don't see them unleashing him and giving him tons of targets to where he's going to be a every week startable tight end one. But I could be wrong about that one. This is one of those where the talent is for sure there. I just don't know if he's going to get the volume he needs to produce.
Yeah, probably another player we'll talk about tomorrow for sure.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's go ahead and move on to Broncos Patriots. I wasn't expecting the Broncos to win this one, but they do. Drew Lock did not have a good game, 34.9 passer rating, but Philip Lindsay returns with a nice 100-yard game. No work through the air, but he got it done on the ground. What did you see on the Broncos side of the ball that you think is interesting?
So fully expect Melvin Gordon to be back next week. If he's not, it's for disciplinary reasons. This week we actually thought it was going to be because of his disciplinary actions taken, but it was actually because of illness. Apparently, he had some kind of stomach bug. So I do expect him to be back in the lineup next week. So Philip Lindsay is kind of a 1 week thing for me. If you played him this week, he got yards, which is good. No catches, so like kind of limited upside for him. But outside of that, since Melvin Gordon will be back next week, in my opinion, Tim Patrick is probably the only guy that I saw as pretty interesting. He had 8 targets, 4 catches, 101 yards, and I think that's something you can work with. Even though Noah Fant, KJ Hamler, they come back next week, so that definitely could take value away from that as well. So perhaps nothing. Perhaps I take nothing from the Broncos, but
Yeah.
It'll be very interesting to see how things shake out when everyone comes back to their offense next week.
Yep.
But it's kind of difficult to tell at the moment. So
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's kind of wait and see till the starters are back in that offense. But good to see from Philip Lindsay. I think that's encouraging, especially if we see a Melvin Gordon suspension. So let's move on to the Patriots. I think my biggest takeaway here is Damian Harris, not a thing, right? Like 6 carries for 19 yards, 1 catch for 14 yards, like at least 1 catch, He we saw Sony Michel in that role barely ever get any catches. So that's something. But again, Burkhead had 5 carries. James White had 4. James White had 9 targets in the passing game. Like, I think maybe any chance of Harris, breaking the mold and becoming a workhorse in this offense was kind of crushed this week, especially with Cam getting 10 carries himself. So do you agree with that? Or are you still holding out hope? Or do you think he's droppable?
I'm still holding out a little bit of hope. He didn't have a good game, no. But they were also trying to come from behind the entire game. They never really got to establish their points. And so they used James White a lot, 9 targets, 8 catches. So he was on the field for almost the entire second half, just because they were trying to, get the offense going and get down the field. But Cam was just abysmal this game, honestly. Like, he had the rushing upside for 76 yards and the touchdown, but his throws were inaccurate. They were bad. They were bad, and it showed. They lost the game because of that. So I do think hopefully Cam has some kind of bounce back game. Thank goodness he's got the rushing upside, because otherwise I don't think he'd be very good at all. But I think like Damian Harris isn't droppable or anything. You still hold on to him and hope he has a bounce back week next week.
Yeah, I think Harris, personally for me, running back's so thin that you can hold him on your bench, but I think he's really only going to be usable in plus matchups when
right.
But again, with this offense, how often are we going to see that? To be honest,
that's fair.
And it'll be interesting to see. I know Sony Michel is just added to the COVID list, so maybe he just takes a while to come back. But it'll be interesting to see what happens while he's gone, and then when he comes back, if he comes back, what kind of role he takes. Because Damian Harris seems to be just a Sony Michel plus, So I think it's worth watching. A little disappointing for anyone who's holding out hope of him having, a bigger role. But I think maybe this was the most likely outcome.
Yeah, James White, I think, is the guy you want in Cam, obviously, just
Hmm.
for rushing upside. But other than
Yep.
that, yeah, I mean, Damian Harris, keep him for another week, and if he's not great, then yeah, I would drop him. But I wouldn't drop him yet.
Yep. Agreed. Okay, well, let's go ahead and move on to the football team taking on the Giants and losing by one. But I gotta say, I so respect them going for the 2-point conversion to win it. Did you see that?
I was unable to see the end of that one actually, but
Yeah. End of the game, the football team ties it up or has the potential to tie it up. They could have kicked the extra point to tie the game, but instead, they went for two to win the game. And Kyle Allen just totally spaghettied it. I don't know what he was doing, but he botched it. But I really respect them doing that. And Coach Rivera said something along the lines of, "You can't learn to win unless you like failed trying." It wasn't exactly that, but it was something like basically like, yeah, I mean, we're a football team that is trying to win games. We went out there and we tried to win on that 2-point conversion. That's the only way we're going to learn what works. What works in those situations is by trying. So I freaking love that call, even though it didn't work out. I really love it. I think my favorite part of this game was Logan Thomas getting 3 catches for 42 yards and a touchdown. Finally, we see something from him after I believed in him for so long. What else did you see on the Washington side of the ball that you liked?
I will say Logan Thomas's touchdown. It was a nice play. It was a really good like toe tap in the back of the end
Yeah,
zone.
I mean
Um,
he's a beast. Yeah, sorry.
I think you're
Continue.
way too high on him, but it was a nice catch. I'll give you that.
Fair.
um, so the Antonio Gibson not doing great. That was kind of a bummer. 9 carries, 30 yards. And I mean he had 5 targets, 4 catches, which is encouraging. But
Mhm.
most of the passing work went to J.D. McKissick, who I think is a very very interesting pickup this week, and we'll be talking about him. I'm sure he had 6 targets for 6 catches, which is by itself playable. Add in 8 carries, which is one behind Gibson. That's definitely something to keep an eye on. Maybe they're starting to move away from Gibson as McKissick keeps getting it done. Um, but Terry had a good game, and that's the only other one I'd really want to roster from this team. But
Mhm. Yep, I think that's fair to say. Let's go and talk about the Giants. On this side of the ball, we talked about I talked about this week how I didn't want to start anyone on this team going into this game. I said you could start Devonta Freeman if you were in a pinch. He had 61 yards on the ground and -4 yards in the passing game. So you can't be too disappointed in that because it's not like you were expecting that much more. Um, but Darius Slayton gets a touchdown catch on 2 receptions for 40 yards. I mean, I think this is what we expected in this game. Like, it just was a game you kind of wanted to stay away from. I mean, I have nothing else to talk about here, unless you do.
I did say I think you could still keep Slayton in your lineup. I mean, he only got 4 targets, 2 catches, 41 yards, but he got a touchdown to salvage that. I think when it comes down to it, he is the guy that Daniel Jones like. If he has to lock into someone, it's going to be Darius Slayton.
Mhm.
Um, the 18 carries from Freeman is really encouraging. Not a whole lot in the passing game, but 18 carries. I mean, he seems right behind Gurley. I mean, in terms of production and I mean volume opportunity. Um, so am I lumping Mixon, Gurley, Freeman
Yeah, I'm
together?
about to say I hate that. I hate that.
Maybe I
Don't you
am,
dare.
but they seem very
Don't
similar.
mention
I mean, add in Kenyon Drake because he's also in that area where they just get a ton of carries and
Drake
no
is
production.
Drake is below that.
It's tons of carries, zero production. That's how I feel about all 4 of those guys, really. And then
Yeah.
Gurley will occasionally give you the production, and Mixon will occasionally give you the production. But I don't know. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I think you're right on, except for the whole Mixon thing. But all right, let's go ahead and move on to the next game to just get away from that one. Ravens Eagles 30-28. The Ravens win it. We finally get something from Lamar on the ground. 9 carries for 108 yards and a touchdown. Also notable from this game is Mark Ingram has an, I believe, ankle injury. So Gus
Mhm.
Edwards and J.K. Dobbins are certain to be names that we discuss on the waiver wire show tomorrow. Notable that they have a bye this coming week. in week 7. But yeah, I thought this was really great to see. We kind of talked about on the weekly preview that we expected a big game from Lamar, and he didn't have a monster game, but he had a really solid game, like 100 yards and a touchdown on the ground. That's what you want to see from Lamar. You're not expecting a ton in the passing game from him. We never were, but it was great to see him break that 37-yard touchdown run like that. For me, as a Lamar manager, that was encouraging. Maybe that knee soreness from last week was holding him back, but he's looking like normal Lamar of old again, which makes me happy and optimistic moving forward.
Yeah, thank goodness for that rushing upside this week, especially 9 carries, 108. That's just awesome. Love to see that. That's what we wanted to see this entire time. And maybe Mark Ingram going down kind of helped with that. So it may be a bigger boost for Lamar necessarily than the other running backs. But Gus Edwards did get 14 carries, which is a couple more than J.K. Dobbins, but J.K. Dobbins has actually been very good if you look at his stat line. So, not necessarily this game, 9 for 28, but in previous games, and that's something to keep an eye on. Obviously, if Mark Ingram's down for an extended period of time, who's the pickup? I would say it's J.K. Dobbins. That's the one you want to focus on more. But they seem to like Gus Edwards, and perhaps he's the guy they're going to lean on. But I think it really, really could benefit Jackson more than any of them.
Yeah, we'll talk about it more in our waiver show, but I agree with that benefiting Jackson, but I definitely lean Dobbins just because they're headed into a bye week. We saw the Lions come out of their bye week with DeAndre Swift taking on a much bigger role. I think a similar thing could happen with or without the Ingram injury lingering through the bye with J.K. Dobbins, because he's been so productive on the field. Like he's looked really good out there, but they just refuse to give him a heavier workload. And that's because Gus Edwards has looked great too. So I think the upside is capped by the fact that there are 3 viable running backs in this backfield. It will, I think, from what I don't think I've heard anything to where Ingram's going to miss a significant amount of time, but maybe they just don't know yet. But I lean Dobbins as the pickup, but I think you're right that this could benefit Lamar too on the ground moving forward.
Right. And then Marquise Brown with a decent game.
Yeah, 6 targets, decent game. Mark Andrews with a stinker. I mean, you just have to keep rolling him out, but it's tough to do.
Yeah, he's seemed a little touchdown dependent to me, where he needs that touchdown to really have a good game, and he gets a lot of them. To be fair, he gets a lot of them, but you'd love to see him get a little bit more involved outside the end zone.
I feel like Lamar is spreading the ball, like the volume, just the passing game as a whole hasn't really been there, but I also feel like Lamar is spreading the ball around a little bit more. Like eight different guys had catches in this game.
Right. I think he's up until this game, he's actually run a little bit less, which is kind of I think it's capped him both in fantasy and as a player. He just feels a little bit less comfortable, a little less able to be himself and run outside the pocket. So hopefully this is a good sign for Lamar this game, and a good sign that he'll get back to what he was doing last year. But we'll see.
Yep. Let's go ahead and move on to the Eagles. I know Miles Sanders left with an injury. Still had a 100-yard game and that nice 74-yard run.
Should have had a touchdown on it. Let's talk about that, where he fumbled like 3 yards out from the end zone, and Ortega-Whiteside picked it up instead.
Yeah. Ortega-Whiteside his expression was hilarious. You can tell how surprised he was. He stood up. He's like, "Let's go."
He was just laughing. Like he was just like, "It's mine now."
Sanders owners have to be tilting from that play for sure. That's 6 points coughed up there. But other than that, I thought he looked great. Wentz with a decent game, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then 50 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Nice game rushing from Wentz. And then I got to eat my words for now with Travis Fulgham. 6 catches, 75 yards and a touchdown. But I still stand by. I don't like him in season long because Deshaun Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey coming back, Dallas Goedert eventually coming back. I just still don't see the volume being there for him this week with those guys still injured. I thought it made sense, of course, but I'm out on him for the rest of the season, even though I think he'll put up decent numbers. I just don't think he's going to be a startable asset. What about you?
After 2 back-to-back good games, I'm starting to change my tune a little bit. Maybe Jeffrey and Jackson come back, and he's still good. I mean,
Maybe.
he's earning his spot right now. I mean, I'm sure there'll be a lot of notes coming out of the Eagles facility about what they plan on doing with Fulgham. But at this point, I feel like you can't just throw away a good talent that's been producing for you while these guys have been out.
Yeah.
So we'll see. That's definitely something to keep tabs on. Miles Sanders, he did get hurt, but 9 carries total is a little bit. I mean, because that was, I believe, near the end of the game where he went down, right?
I'm not actually sure about that. I was gonna ask you on that one.
I don't remember. I'm trying to remember, but I think it was closer to the end of the game, which is a little bit concerning about his carry numbers. But I think he'll be all right. It didn't seem that bad. If it is, I don't particularly love Boston Scott by any means, but we'll talk about that some more tomorrow, and hopefully we know a little bit more on the injury tomorrow. He produced on 9 carries, but if he's only getting 9 carries a game, it's still a little bit concerning. But he did do that against the Ravens defense, which is pretty impressive. I cannot believe the Eagles almost came back to win this game. If only their 2-point conversion had gone just a tad better.
Yeah. I think Sanders is that home run threat that he doesn't even need all that volume, and I think we'll get more in weeks where the game script is a lot better. So I'm not worried about him. But yeah, good to see that he popped off another big one in this game.
Right.
Let's go ahead and move on to the next game. We have the Browns against the Steelers. Your boy Chase Claypool with another great game. He had a touchdown on the ground, and then he had 4 catches for 74 yards on 4 targets. So, yeah, nice game from him. Through the air is about more what I was expecting. 4 catches, getting those deep targets. He had 74 yards on those 4 catches. I think that's, to be honest, when Deontay Johnson gets back, I think that's about the high end of what we can expect from Claypool. And then he's not always going to get that rushing touchdown. But 4 for 70, I feel like is like, even when Deontay Johnson is back, I think he could hit that on any given week. I'm just not expecting monster games from him when he's no longer kind of the first option in this offense. What's your takeaway from this? Because I know you're the biggest Claypool truther out there.
Yeah, I think Claypool looked really, really good. I mean, I think on a regular week you can kind of write in a touchdown there as well, but he had the rushing touchdown, which again just proves that they're trying to use him in every way they can. I think he looked really good. I think he's going to continue to produce for you. I think the bigger note is actually that Juju had 4 targets, 2 catches, 6 yards. I think the Steelers are really trying to find a new guy because they're trying to get rid of Juju after this year. They're looking for that new guy, and I think it's starting to become clear to them that it's Chase Claypool, and that's the guy they want to invest in, especially in his rookie season. And they're starting to fade Juju. And then that's not to say Juju's not, talented enough to continue doing his thing, but I think they just want to move on from him. That's what it seems like.
Yeah, I think Claypool did look great. Juju, not so much. I think I agree with you here. And like I said, I think Claypool is going to be a good fantasy asset moving forward. I just think, especially after these last 2 games, people are going to be expecting monster games on the regular, and I don't see that. But James Washington with a good game as well. I think it just proves that when there's, I think that it's just going to be when Deontay Johnson and Claypool are the top 2 options. I think they're both going to perform when it's Claypool and James Washington. I think this offense can really support 2 receivers with a 3rd decent option. That's what I think. So I think when Deontay Johnson is back, Johnson and Claypool will 100% be startable. And then I think Juju is like a guy, if you're desperate during the bye weeks, maybe you flex,
Seems like a pretty good take.
Because I doubt you're going to drop. Yeah, I think this offense is good enough to support 2 and a decent 3rd. So that's where I'm at. I think the happy medium for you and I is that I think Johnson and Claypool can happily coexist here in this offense with Big Ben looking great. So, or solid at least. So I think we're okay there. James Conner with 100 and a touchdown on the ground, as well as 1 catch through the air. So, yeah, I think this is pretty much what to expect from the Steelers offense. Anything else you want to say there?
Yeah, for James Conner, I think it's going to be pretty standard for him. 20
Mm-hmm.
carries, 100 yards, and a touchdown. That seems like a more or less an every week James Conner stat to me. So
Yeah, I
always
saw
good.
that. I saw that Benny Snell touchdown. I thought of you, and then you drew you blew some hefty fab
I
on
watched
him,
that
which I
happen, and I
respect.
was like, man, I was forced to start Duke Johnson in one of my leagues, and I guess I should have started Benny Snell. So yeah, I was bitter. I
Yeah,
was bitter about that one. It's fine.
yeah. At least you're not holding on to what you once had, like me with Dallas Goddard, just holding him on my bench, hoping he turns into something that was worth the $43 fab. So, oh, man. On the Brown side of the ball, Kareem Hunt disappointing in this one. He had 13 carries for 40 yards, and through the air he had 2 catches for 17 yards on 3 targets. So tough Steelers defense to be sure, but you're kind of hoping that the usage is more there for Kareem Hunt. And then Dearness Johnson. I don't know if we ever started this podcast before. I think it was right after that waiver week went
Yeah,
through, but I never saw it with Dearness Johnson. I don't know why people were assuming he was going to be what Kareem Hunt was to Chubb when they were healthy. Like, I think they play Chubb and Hunt because they're both such talented running backs. I don't
right.
think they need to have two guys. We saw Hillary get worked in there, so clearly they're not giving the brunt of. They're not going to give all the work to Hunt. But yeah, Dearness Johnson just seems like a total waiver wire miss, and he's proving to be that so far. What do you think about this offense?
So this was clearly just a really, really bad week for them. I mean, Baker was either injured or simply pulled from the game. It was a little difficult to tell, but Case Keenum came in nonetheless and didn't do much better. So I think they go back to Baker and back to basics next week and just run the ball against Cincinnati, who they've got next week. And I think things will look a lot better next week. Kareem Hunt he just didn't have a good game. Dearness Johnson, I've never really been in on. He's not going to come in and beat Chubb. I honestly went all in on Kareem Hunt because he's going to be the guy still for the next few weeks, and I think he'll get a lot more carries in the upcoming weeks and passes. I just think it kind of all went downhill for the Browns, and
Yeah.
kind of like the Packers. I think you can just write it off and move on from it.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about coming into this game that we could see Baker Mayfield turning the ball over early, and then this game script just getting out of hand. Like, we talked about that on the preview show, and I think that's
Right.
exactly what happened. Steelers defense just kind of set the tone for this one. So I agree. I think you can just throw it away, and I think the Browns will get back to that run-heavy approach where they can actually move the ball on the defenses they play in the coming weeks.
Right.
Okay, well, I think that's. Oh, also worth noting, Austin Hooper suddenly getting involved in this offense. Five catches for 52 yards. That's back-to-back weeks with heavy involvement. I'm starting to like Hooper. I was so out on him early in the season. Like, he was seeing no volume whatsoever. Now, back from the dead, like, he's looking good. What do you think about him?
I thought it looked pretty good. I'm not all in on it. There's just a lot of receivers there. It's a little messy, but again, tight ends scarce and scarce, whatever the word is. And you wanna, if there's a tight end you believe in, go for it. But I don't think I'm in on Hooper yet.
I mean, I'm not like passionately believing in him like I am Dallas Goddard, or Logan Thomas
Right.
for that matter. But I mean, 10.2 fantasy points, like that's like top 7 tight end numbers. And he's done that in back-to-back weeks now, and 6 targets on an offense that threw the ball 28 times. I think as a tight end, that's something I'm like, okay, that's notable. I'm not the biggest believer in Austin Hooper, but I think they're making a legitimate effort to get him involved now, and I think he's worth a start moving forward. Whereas a couple weeks ago, I personally, if I had him, I would have dropped him. So I'm happy I didn't, because I'd be so mad right now if I had dropped him. But he's looking like a startable asset moving
Yeah,
forward.
definitely startable. I just think they get back to running the ball next week for sure.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, that's all I care about to say on that game. What about you?
Yeah, about the same.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on to Bears Panthers. I want to hash this out with you, man. The disrespect on DJ Moore lately, like he didn't have a monster game, but he is the wide receiver one on this offense, man. People were talking about how Robbie Anderson is the guy now as Teddy Bridgewater's go-to target. DJ Moore is old news. He's a wide receiver 3 if you're desperate. Like, stop. Just stop. 11 targets, 5 catches, 93 yards. I'm a little salty because he should have had a bigger game. He had a few brutal drops in this one. But 11 targets compared to Robbie Anderson's 5. That's what DJ Moore owners have been wanting to see lately. And this was a tough matchup, too, against the Bears, giving up the second to least fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. So what do you think about DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson? My take is that they can both coexist and be good wide receiver 2 options. What about you?
I do think they can coexist. I still think Robbie Anderson's the guy. Here's something. Robbie Anderson, if he had one more catch, he would set a franchise record for Panthers receptions in the first 6 games. The guy is being heavily targeted. He is the number one. Okay, yeah, I did my homework on this one, Steven. Robbie Anderson is still the guy. I don't think DJ Moore is their guy. I still think it's Robbie Anderson. He still looks good. So Moore drew some more targets this game. That's great. Good for him because I want to see him produce too. I just still think it's Robbie Anderson. Meanwhile, on the running side, Mike Davis, a little lackluster, still gets a touchdown, and I mean that's all you want from him, anyways. So good there.
Yeah, I think. I mean, DJ Moore having over 2 times Robbie Anderson's targets. I mean, I guess you want to throw that out the window. That's fine, but yeah, DJ Moore, wide receiver 1 on this team. I'm glad we have these disagreements because I can't wait to track them as the season goes along. But I mean, I think
we will.
This is the biggest discrepancy we've seen between their 2 targets. Has me super excited for DJ Moore.
Yeah, usually it's been flip-flopped, in fact. So.
Again. Yeah, exactly. And so I was happy to see this. I actually was this. I almost benched DJ Moore for Laviska Shenault, which would have been just the way to getting cutesy move. Like, I only didn't do it because DJ Chark ended up playing, but I was going to start Shenault over DJ Moore. Good thing I didn't. But yeah, so okay, we'll track that as the season goes. But on the Bears side of the ball, David Montgomery, I mean, he's
still getting targets, still getting catches.
Like he keeps saving his day with these like performances in the passing game. Like he gets 4 catches, 39 yards to the air, but again, just 58 yards on the ground. Like I think he's just showing like despite this RB like top 12, the workload of a top 12 running back, he just doesn't necessarily have that breakaway talent to get the volume there. But I think he's like a reliable, but I don't think he really has the upside of pretty much anyone else who would be getting this kind of volume.
Yeah, he did have literal 1-yard touchdown vulture from him as Nick Foles just fell straight into the end zone. He's tall, all he has to do is fall and reach, But I mean, I like Montgomery moving forward. He's getting the receptions that he needs to like be great. I think he just needs like a breakout run, something like that. Sure, and he's got himself a great game. I mean, it's still 3.1 yards a carry, which I don't love. But I mean, this offense at least seems to be moving, which is good, So can't complain there. Allen Robinson, still 9 targets, but only 5 for 53. Just not a great game. Carolina's corners seem to be actually doing pretty well. So that's something to watch. If you have someone playing Carolina's corners, they seem to be doing pretty well against the alphas. Mm-hmm. So.
All right, well let's try and get to these last 3 games pretty quick. Okay, so we have Lions Jaguars next. DeAndre Swift breakout game, 116 yards, 2 touchdowns, as well as 3 catches for 7 yards to the air. He's Galladay also has a good game. Stafford with a little bit of a disappointing one. DeAndre Swift, I'm excited about moving forward. What about you?
I think this is his game where he really starts to take over. I mean, Adrian Peterson still had 1 more carry, but I mean, I think DeAndre Swift proved that he can be way better than Peterson. And Matt Patricia needs to win, so he's going to do what it takes. And I think DeAndre Swift is what it takes. So,
agreed.
This could be the guy that makes Patricia look good.
Yeah, I agree. On the Jaguars side of the ball, we see James Robinson with only 29 yards on 12 carries, But I believe you mentioned Keelan Cole as a guy you wanted people to start. Is that correct?
I did. I thought he was a great start this week, and he finally, he had a really great game. Minshew threw him the ball, actually connected with him. DJ Chark still drew 14 targets, which is just absurd. But I think proved that even with Chark healthy and there, healthy quote unquote, and there, Keelan Cole could be a great option moving forward. That was against the Lions, of course, but I think he's definitely rosterable at the very least.
I owe you an apology for the Cole pick. I really wasn't in on that, and he had a great game. So I'll chalk that one up to a win for you.
Deal.
Laviska Shenault, although he has a disappointing game, still has 7 targets, so he's still getting involved in that offense. Just a down day for him. Anything else you want to say here, or are you ready to move on?
Nope. James Robinson salvaged with a touchdown. That's all.
Yep. Okay. And pretty decent work through the air too for him. So that was good to see. Okay, Jets Dolphins. Mike Gesicki killing me, man. 0 catches, had 2 targets. The worst part about this is both Adam Shaheen and Durham Smith both scored touchdowns. They're the other 2 tight ends on the roster.
Yep. That was a rough one.
I mean, wow. Between him and Alexander Madison, I was tilting this week. Yeah, I mean, I think this is what we expected. Fitzpatrick, had 3 quick touchdowns in the first half, threw a couple picks in the second half, but nice to see Tua come out late in the game with the Dolphins just running away with this one. And then Gaskin looks great too. So that's all I have to say on the Dolphins side of the ball. What did you see on that side of the ball?
About the same. Gaskin looked really good. I would have loved to see the actual, the players get involved. Devontae Parker and Gesicki just kind of duds. So
killing me.
Parker did have an injury. That's, by the way, nearing the end of the game. That's something to monitor.
Yep. On the Jets side of the ball, with Flacco starting, they could not get anything going. And this was 2 things here had me worried for Jamison Crowder moving forward. I dealt him in a deal for Deontay Johnson before Deontay's second injury of the year because of this. When the Jets offense can't get anything going, they're totally stuck. And although he had 13 targets, he had 7 catches for just 48 yards. I think that's around Jamison Crowder's floor, which is great. But I also think this offense is just so bad that his upside, what you've been seeing the last few weeks with these touchdowns, I think people have just started to expect that more than they should. And especially with Brashad Perriman coming back and being very involved, 8 targets, 4 catches for 62 yards. I think you're just going to see that more and more as more of these guys get healthy. I know Denzel Mims is going to be in at receiver, and I know they'll try to get the rookie involved to spark that offense. So huge bummer for the Jets offense overall. But I think Crowder kind of put up a performance similar to what you can expect from him moving forward.
Yeah, but I mean, if 13 targets, 7 catches, 48 yards is his floor, that's an exceptional floor. I think
great.
Crowder's an every week play. I mean, it's just hard to argue with that volume, especially as a receiver. I mean, that's insane. So even with just a terrible team, the rest of them, I wouldn't start anyone else, obviously, but Jamison Crowder is an every week start for me.
I agree. I think he's going to have that nice floor to where he's never going to kill you. I just don't think he's going to win you weeks like he has been the last few weeks. I don't think there's anything else worth noting here in the Jets offense. What about you?
No, not at all.
Okay, let's go ahead and move to our last game. Rams-Niners. A week after Sean McVay says he's going to get Cam Akers more involved, Cam Akers had a total of one snap. One snap, not even a touch. Absolutely absurd. He said it was due to game flow, but I'm just a little curious, how exactly that happened. Darrell Henderson gets the carries, 88 yards, and 4 receiving yards on 0 catches. Is that possible? Anyways, you see Higbee has another good game. You just never know when it's coming. What did you see on the Rams side of the ball that you think is notable?
The Rams offense didn't really look good, but Darrell Henderson was kind of like the lone bright spot. He was getting chunk gains on every single run. I think he's kind of earning that starting role. I think you can kind of forget about Malcolm Brown and unfortunately probably forget about Akers. You never know with them. They're a little Patriot-esque in their running back situations
Mhm.
sometimes, but I do think Darrell Henderson's an every week start at this point. I think he's looked really good. In terms of throwing, no one had a good game really. Robert Woods salvaged his day with a touchdown. But if that's what you're going to be banking on with him, I don't know that that's what you really want.
Yeah.
Just not a very good game for the Rams overall, though.
Yep. And then on the 49ers side of the ball, you saw Raheem Mostert was off to a solid start, leaves with an injury. Kittle has a Kittle game, 7 catches, 109 yards, and a touchdown on 10 targets. I think we saw this offense got back on track. Deebo Samuel getting in his groove.
Deebo looked good.
I think this
Deebo looked really good.
Yeah. I think this is what you can start to expect, this usage from the 49ers offense here. Like, I think this was last week was kind of a fluke, and this was just like them kind of getting back on track here.
Yeah, as long as Mostert stays healthy, I think Mostert, Kittle, Samuel, those are all good starts every week moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. And in my opinion, I think Ayuk is droppable. What do you think about that?
At this point, I think I agree. He didn't have a whole lot of usage. Yeah, I mean, 2 catches. So
yeah. Okay. Anything else that you want to say about that game in particular, Tuck?
Not that game. Robert Woods. Wish he would have scored a couple more points, but it's fine.
Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of our Week 6 recap. Any closing comments you have for the viewer?
Really excited for the matchups tonight, especially the Chiefs Buffalo Bills. That's going to be a very fun game to watch. So
that's the finishing blow I need to take you down a DFS. I've got that Allen Diggs stack, so it's coming your way, man.
All right. Yeah, we'll see how that goes, and we'll cover some waivers tomorrow.
Sounds good. I will see you then, Tucker.
All right. Peace.
Peace.